Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring how DNA analysis totally revolutionized criminal investigations.
Yeah, it's really fascinating stuff.
We've got research papers, we've got case studies, all sorts of things. So get ready for some serious aha moments as we
I think there will be some.
yeah.
It's really quite remarkable how DNA technology has transformed the pursuit of justice. It's a story of innovation and impact, going from like a niche scientific discovery to a cornerstone of law enforcement today.
Yeah, it's almost hard to imagine a time before DNA evidence. Back when investigators relied on things like fingerprints and eyewitness accounts, which
Right.
we know now are notoriously unreliable.
Yeah, precisely. Those traditional methods, they had limitations, right? They left a lot more room for error and, unfortunately, sometimes injustice, right? But then in 1984, everything changed.
Oh, here we go.
This is where Alec Jeffreys, a British geneticist, he discovers this thing called DNA fingerprinting.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. So Jeffries, he figures out that each person's DNA, except for identical twins, of course, it's totally unique.
Absolutely.
But like a game changer.
It really is. It's like a biological barcode for every person, right?
Oh.
This unique identifier that could be used to link people to crime scenes with incredible accuracy.
Yeah, and it wasn't just a theoretical thing either. I mean, the Narborough murders in 1986, that case really put DNA analysis on the map, didn't it?
It really did.
Hmm.
This case involved the tragics of two young girls, and initially, a man actually confessed to the crimes.
Oh, wow.
But thanks to Jeffrey's groundbreaking technique, DNA testing actually proved his innocence.
Wait, so the police had a confession, but DNA evidence said, nope, not him.
Exactly.
That's
It
wild.
was a pivotal moment, you know. So the investigation shifted, and authorities decided to do something really unprecedented at the time. Mass DNA sampling of men in the area.
Talk about a needle in a haystack.
It was. It was like finding a needle in a haystack, but it worked. They identified Colin Pitchfork through his DNA and apprehended him.
That's straight out of a movie. So this one case, the Narborough murders, it really established DNA evidence in criminal investigations.
It did, yeah. It demonstrated the power of not only catching the criminals, but also, really importantly, exonerating the innocent, which is like a cornerstone of any just legal system.
It's pretty amazing to think that all of this stemmed from one man's discovery, you know? So what happened next? How did DNA analysis evolve from that point?
Well, the 1990s saw this explosion of advancements, right? DNA analysis became faster, cheaper, and incredibly sensitive. Scientists could work with smaller and smaller samples,
Oh, wow.
which meant that even tiny amounts of DNA could be used to solve crimes.
So is that what led to all those cold cases getting solved that we hear about? Cases that had been stalled for years and then bam, DNA cracks them wide open.
You got it.
That's amazing.
Cold cases that were once considered unsolvable were suddenly given a second chance, right?
Okay.
Thanks to these advances in DNA technology.
It must have been a game changer for those families who never gave up hope.
Right.
And then, in 1994, the U.S. launched CODIS, the Combined DNA Index System.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
Well, CODIS is a national database of DNA profiles.
Okay.
It allows law enforcement agencies to compare DNA samples from crime scenes, from convicted offenders. Essentially, it's like creating this giant network of potential connections.
So, if a DNA sample is found at a crime scene in, let's say, California, it can be checked against samples from all over the country, even the world.
Exactly. And that's not all. CODIS has been super instrumental in identifying serial offenders, right? People who might have committed crimes in different states, different jurisdictions, and it helps connect those dots that might have otherwise been missed.
That's incredible. It's like this giant puzzle, and DNA is helping put all the pieces together. It's not just about solving individual crimes, but about seeing those bigger connections.
That's right. CODIS has fundamentally changed the landscape of law enforcement, leading to tons of arrests and convictions.
Wow.
It's estimated that CODIS has helped in over 500,000 investigations, which is a pretty remarkable feat. And similar databases were established in Europe in 2002, furthering this global reach of this technology.
Wow. Okay, so we've got the science down, we've got the history, we've got these databases like CODIS, but what about the human side of this? I'm talking about the real world stories where DNA evidence was the key to solving the case or righting a wrong. What are some of those stories that really highlight the impact of DNA analysis?
Ah, yes. There are so many powerful examples that really show the diverse applications and impact of DNA analysis.
Okay, let's hear them.
Let's start with the story of Kirk Bloodsworth.
Okay, Crick Bloodsworth. Now, his case is one that's really hard to forget. He was wrongfully convicted of murder and even sentenced to death row, right?
That's right.
It's hard to imagine.
And throughout his ordeal, he maintained his innocence, and eventually, after years of fighting, DNA testing became available.
Okay, and what happened? Did the test results back up his claims?
They did. The DNA tests conclusively proved that Bloodsworth was not the perpetrator, leading to his exoneration in 1993. He became the first person on death row to be exonerated by DNA evidence, a truly landmark case that highlighted the potential for wrongful convictions and the power of DNA to correct them.
Wow, so in his case, DNA technology literally saved his life. It really underscores just how crucial accuracy and due diligence are in our justice system.
Yeah. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? But it's also a testament to the power of perseverance and the importance of continually reevaluating cases, especially when new technology becomes available.
Absolutely. And speaking of groundbreaking cases, the story of the Golden State Killer is another one that captivated the world. This killer who terrorized California for decades, leaving all these unsolved crimes in his wake.
Yeah, shrouded in mystery for years. Despite tons of leads, the tireless efforts by investigators, they couldn't uncover his identity. Yeah. But in 2018, a breakthrough came from a kind of unexpected source, a genealogy website.
Hold on, a genealogy website? So are you saying they used DNA to track down a serial killer through his family tree?
Exactly.
That's wild.
It was a revolutionary application of DNA technology. Investigators, they uploaded a DNA profile to a public genealogy database, and they were able to find some distant relatives. From there, they painstakingly constructed his family tree, narrowing down the possibilities until they landed on Joseph D'Angelo.
Wow, that's some serious detective work. So DNA not only linked him to the crimes, but also unmasked him through his family connections.
Precisely. It really showed the evolving capabilities of DNA analysis, the increasing availability of genetic data, and it opened up new avenues for solving crimes, which is incredible.
I bet that approach has been used in other cases too, right?
Absolutely. That success, that really paved the way for using genetic genealogy in countless investigations, giving law enforcement a really powerful new tool for solving cold cases.
It's amazing to think that DNA technology can reach back in time like that, giving answers, bringing closure to cases that might have stayed a mystery forever.
Yeah, it really is.
Okay, so anything else? I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of the impact of DNA analysis.
Oh, there's plenty more. There's this chilling case from Chicago that really demonstrates this power. It involves the tragic murder of a 7-year-old girl back in 1957.
Oh, wow.
And for over 50 years, the case just remained a heartbreaking mystery.
50 years? That must have been incredibly frustrating for everyone involved, especially the family.
It was. But in 2010, they got another shot. Advancements in DNA technology allowed investigators to re-examine the evidence from the crime scene.
And what'd they find?
They found DNA that pointed them to a suspect, a man who had been a teenager when the murder happened.
Wait, so they were able to use DNA from evidence that was over 5 decades old? That's remarkable.
It is, and what's even more incredible is that this DNA evidence ultimately led to his identification and conviction, finally bringing a sense of justice and closure to a case that had haunted the community for generations.
Man, these stories are powerful. They really highlight the impact of DNA analysis, not just in solving these crimes, but in providing answers, in providing closure to the families and communities that have been searching for it, sometimes for decades.
It's true. They showcase the evolution of forensic science, the dedication of those investigators, and the enduring hope for justice, no matter how much time has passed.
It really makes you think about how far we've come since those early days of, DNA fingerprinting, and it makes you wonder, where do we go from here? What's the next chapter in this DNA revolution?
That's a great question. As technology continues to advance, we can definitely expect even more sophisticated DNA analysis techniques, leading to new possibilities in forensic science and beyond.
Well, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's take a closer look at one specific aspect of DNA analysis that people might not even think about: the importance of clothing in investigations.
Yeah. Clothing, it can be like a treasure trove of forensic evidence. Even the most seemingly insignificant traces left on clothes can be crucial in solving a crime.
Really? Like what? I wouldn't think a piece of lint or a stray thread would be that helpful.
Oh, you might be surprised. Think about skin cells, sweat, saliva, even tiny blood stains, things you can't even see. All of those can contain DNA that can be used to identify a person.
Oh, okay. So let's say investigators arrive at a crime scene. How do they go about collecting DNA evidence from clothing?
It's a pretty meticulous
Or
process.
that.
First, they secure the scene to prevent contamination. Then they carefully examine each piece of clothing, looking for anything that could contain DNA.
So they're looking for obvious stains or anything that looks suspicious.
Yes, but they're also looking for things that are less obvious. Places where the fabric might have, like, touch skin, like collars, cuffs, or even the inside of a pocket.
So it's not just about finding bloodstains, it's about finding any potential trace of DNA, no matter how small.
Precisely. Once they've identified those potential areas, they carefully collect samples, sometimes using swabs, sometimes actually cutting out small sections of the fabric. Those samples are then packaged, transported to the lab for analysis.
And I'm guessing those labs have gotten pretty high tech over the years.
Oh, absolutely. They use all sorts of techniques to extract and analyze the DNA from these samples. One of the most common techniques is called polymerase chain reaction, or PCR.
Oh, PCR. I've heard of that, but I don't really understand how it works.
It's basically a way to amplify small amounts of DNA. It's like a molecular copy machine, creating millions of copies of a specific DNA sequence.
So even if they only have a tiny bit of DNA from a clothing sample, PCR can make it enough to analyze.
Exactly.
Yeah.
PCR has really been a game changer in forensic science because it's allowed investigators to work with the smallest traces of DNA evidence.
It's amazing how technology can make something as simple as a piece of clothing into a gold mine of information. But I gotta ask, with all this focus on DNA and its ability to identify individuals, are there concerns about privacy? Is there a chance that this technology could be misused?
That's a great question, and it takes us into a really crucial aspect of this DNA revolution. While the benefits of DNA technology are undeniable, especially in criminal justice, the ethical considerations around its use are becoming more and more important. We need to strike this delicate balance between using this incredible tool for good and safeguarding individual rights.
So it's not just about the science, it's about the societal and ethical impacts as well.
Precisely. The power of DNA technology is undeniable, but it's essential that we use it responsibly and ethically.
Well, it sounds like that's the perfect topic for the next part of our deep dive. We're going to be exploring those ethical considerations, and trust me, it's a conversation you won't want to miss.
It's true. As DNA technology gets, more powerful, more accessible, it raises all sorts of questions about where we draw the line. Think about the increasing use of these public genetic databases, for example.
Oh, yeah, like those websites where people can upload their DNA to learn about their ancestry or connect with relatives. I've even seen ads for ones that say they can tell you about your health predispositions.
Exactly, and those databases are growing like crazy. And while they can be incredibly helpful for individuals in research, they also present some potential problems for privacy.
So you're saying someone's DNA that they uploaded for like a family history project that could potentially be used in a criminal investigation. That seems a little, I don't know.
It is. It's kind of a gray area for sure. Law enforcement agencies have already started using these databases to solve crimes, sometimes without even getting consent from the people whose data they're using, or even letting them know.
I can see how that could be pretty controversial. It raises a lot of questions about informed consent, the potential for misuse, like you said.
Absolutely. And it doesn't stop there. These concerns, they go beyond just the criminal justice system. Imagine what could happen if DNA information was used for things like employment screening or insurance assessments.
Well, wait. You're saying that someone... Okay, so we've talked about all these incredible breakthroughs, all the cases that have been solved, the innocent people who have been exonerated, and now we're getting into these like crucial ethical considerations. It seems like DNA analysis is this incredibly powerful tool, and like with any powerful tool, we need to be really careful how we use it.
It is. And it's important to remember that this is an evolving field, New discoveries, new applications, they're coming out all the time. That means that this conversation about responsible and ethical use has to be ongoing. It can't just be a one-time thing.
Right, right. So what's next? What are some of the things on the horizon that we should be thinking about? Like, where is all of this headed?
Well, one area that's really exciting is the development of rapid DNA testing. Imagine a device that could analyze a DNA sample in just minutes at a crime scene.
Wow, that would be game-changing. Talk about speeding up investigations. You could potentially catch criminals before they commit another crime.
Exactly, but it also brings up some new concerns
Oh, of course.
about potential errors, the need for proper training and oversight. So there's always going to be that balance.
It seems like every advancement comes with its own set of challenges.
It's true. That's the nature of progress. But It's crucial that we face those challenges head on,
Yeah.
to have those tough conversations and make sure that technology is used for good, that it benefits society as a whole.
That makes sense. Speaking of challenges, what about the accuracy of these DNA tests? I mean, it's considered the gold standard in forensic science. But is there ever a chance of getting it wrong?
It's a valid question. DNA testing is very accurate, but like any scientific process, it's not perfect. Things happen. Human error, samples can get contaminated, results can be misinterpreted. All of that can lead to inaccuracies.
So while DNA evidence is powerful, it's not foolproof. It still has to be collected carefully, analyzed carefully, and interpreted carefully, all within the context of the whole investigation. It's not just a standalone piece of evidence.
You got it. Context is everything. DNA evidence should never just be viewed in isolation. It's one piece of the puzzle. You've got to consider other evidence, witness statements, other investigative work. All of that's still crucial to building a strong case.
So it's like having a toolbox full of tools.
Right.
DNA is a powerful tool, but you got to make sure you're using the right tool for the job and that you know how to use it properly.
I like that analogy. And just as important as using those tools correctly is making sure that the legal framework around DNA evidence is strong and fair, that it protects people's rights.
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about things like the rules about whether DNA evidence can be used in court. Think about the privacy rights of the individuals whose DNA is collected. Think about the potential for bias in the interpretation of those results.
Yeah.
These are all complex issues, legal and ethical issues, that need to be discussed and addressed.
It definitely sounds like we need to make sure the law can keep up with the science.
Exactly. As DNA technology keeps advancing, it's essential that our legal systems adapt, that they provide clear guidelines for how it should be used. We need to make sure that DNA evidence is used responsibly, ethically, protecting individual rights, while we're also trying to promote justice. It's a tough balance, but it's a crucial one.
This deep dive has been so insightful. We've covered a lot of ground. We've gone from the very beginnings of DNA fingerprinting to the newest advancements and all the ethical considerations that come with them. It's obvious that DNA technology has had this huge impact on criminal justice, but it's also clear that there's so much more to learn, so much more to consider as we move forward.
Absolutely. And remember, this conversation isn't over. It's ongoing. As technology keeps evolving, we need to stay engaged, stay informed about the potential benefits and challenges of DNA analysis. We all need to make sure it's being used in a way that truly benefits society.
So what can our listeners do? What can they do to stay informed and be a part of this conversation? How can they learn more?
Well, there are a ton of resources out there. Online, in libraries, organizations like the Innocence Project, the National Institute of Justice, they're all doing great work. They have valuable information on DNA technology and its impact on the justice system.
Yeah. And remember, always approach this information with a critical eye. Look for credible sources, make sure you're considering different perspectives, and don't be afraid to ask questions. The more informed we all are, the better.
I agree. Engaging in thoughtful dialogue, staying informed, being aware of the evolving landscape of DNA technology, those are all crucial steps in making sure that we're using this powerful tool responsibly and ethically. We all have a part to play in this.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this fascinating deep dive into the DNA revolution. But before we go, we want to leave you with something to really think about. Okay, so we've talked about how DNA has been used to solve crimes, exonerate people who were wrongly convicted, even crack those cold cases from years ago. But what about the future? Where do we go from here? What's next?
The possibilities, they're really mind-blowing. What if we could use DNA to predict not just someone's appearance, but their behavior?
Wait, are you talking about predicting whether someone's going to commit a crime based on their DNA? I feel like we're getting into some ethically questionable territory here.
We are, and that's exactly why these advancements need to be discussed and debated. We've got to have those conversations about the potential benefits and the risks of this kind of predictive technology. We have to make sure it's used responsibly and ethically if it's used at all.
I get it. It could be a powerful tool for law enforcement, but you're right. It raises all sorts of red flags about profiling and potential discrimination.
Exactly. And we need to be so careful about the potential for bias. Any predictive tool based on DNA needs to be used fairly and equitably. No exceptions.
It feels like we're standing at the edge of a whole new world of forensic science. One where DNA analysis doesn't just tell us who someone is, but what they might do. It's pretty intense.
It is. It's a fascinating frontier, that's for sure. And it's a complex one. There could be so many questions, so many challenges. It's definitely going to shape the future of criminal justice, and I'd say society as a whole.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into DNA analysis, is there like one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
DNA technology is powerful. It has the potential to change so many aspects of our lives, from criminal justice to healthcare and beyond. But as we've discussed, we have to be mindful of that power. We have a responsibility to use it wisely, ethically, always.
I think you summed it up perfectly. DNA evidence has the power to do so much good, but it also demands careful consideration. We have to be aware of the ethical implications, and we have to keep those conversations going.
I completely agree. It's an ongoing journey of discovery and responsibility, and every single one of us has a role to play in shaping the future of this technology.
So to our listeners out there, we encourage you to keep digging into this topic. Learn more about the science, the ethics, and the potential impact of DNA technology. Stay curious.
Stay informed, stay engaged. Your voice matters in this conversation.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the DNA revolution. We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking. Until next time, keep those brain cells firing.